order today at 5:33 p.m. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I am going to ask Ms. Elaine Klein, if you will please lead us in the pledge.
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let me start by telling you all welcome to the September meeting of the Escambia Democratic Party. For those that I have not met or do not have the pleasure of knowing, my name is Derek Scott, and I serve as chair for the Escambia Democratic Party. I'd like to start by introducing our phenomenal leadership team, and I'm going to start with my wonderful vice chair, Ms. Gwen Decker, who is here in the room. Our wonderful secretary, who's at the desk there, Ms. Alva Woods. Our treasurer, who I believe is traveling over in Greece somewhere, living in his life, Mr. Norm Kruger. Our state committee persons, again, Ms. Gwen Decker, Ms. Lil Eubanks, Mr. Ron Helm, and Ms. Haley Morissette, who will be joining us shortly. Our steering committee members are Ms. Linda Fussell, who is our public education chair, so she has the honor of doing double duty, and she is at the Escambia County School Board, so we want to recognize her announcements. Ms. Cindy Martin, is Cindy here? Ms. Cassandra McElwain, who is joining us via Zoom. Ms. Cheryl Moraine, and Ms. Sarah Randall, who is in the room. I will also recognize our presidents of our clubs and caucus, starting with our Democratic Black Caucus, Ms. Sandra McCrary, which I'm not sure if she's on Zoom or not. The president of the Emerald Coast Equality LGBT Caucus, Mr. Jeff Knoll. Our president of our Escambia County Environmental Caucus, who I believe is on Zoom, Ms. Betty Wilson. The president of the Escambia County Democratic Women's Club, Ms. Linda McCrary, which I thought I saw. Thank you. And our newest, the Florida Young Democrats of Escambia County, Ms. Chris Anderson. So if you're our first time guest, I would ask you to please stand. Thank you for joining us with the Escambia Democratic Party. We are here, as you see, every month in this very same room, starting at 5:30 p.m. So at this time, I want to before I call up our wonderful guests, we are going into our election season for 2026. And we're in the process of making sure that we have robust candidates that will be looking to serve Escambia County and the citizens here. And I want to start, as you all remember, because I want to make sure we have some first-time folks, so I want to make sure. I'm going to take a step back in time, just about 5 months. And in April, for the first time in 19 years, Escambia County lit blue. So, now, having said that, we have built up momentum, trajectories, and we have a strategic plan. And the first of which is to take back the city of Pensacola. So we see all of the harm that is done by the strong mayor form of government and city council that is just unilaterally giving carte blanche to whatever the mayor is wanting to do. So before we get to our guests, I'm going to give about 5 minutes to a candidate who we all know and love. She was the former city council president. She served on the city council. She was on our steering committee for the Escambia Democratic Party. And she has recently signed up to serve, to fight D.C. Reeves to be the next mayor of Pensacola. I want to introduce Ms. Ann.
Thank you. I really am glad to be here, and I think a lot of you know me already. Hold the mic closer. Better. This is it.
Right into it.
Right into it. Oh, that sounds like So I have been at a lot of your meetings. I've served on some of the caucuses and have been very active in Pensacola for about 30 years. I have served on the Community Maritime Park Board, have worked on the Transportation Planning Organization so we could get some of our trails started and make sure our streets are bikeable. And I added a new term, boatability, because I think as we open up our waterfront, we need to be able to kayak and get access that we didn't have. And I did get a couple of kayak launches while I was on council and opened up Bruce Beach. We decided to do a cleanup so we could open the gate, and you know what happened after that. So I've really enjoyed working with the city and for the city, but mostly I work for the people, and that's why I'm running for mayor, so that we can bring the people back into government to serve us all. And thank you for. I have several over here, so please feel free
I'll
to
start
do
on the
that.
table.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
We are well on the road to change. I want to take a point of personal privilege to talk about something that happened today. And many of you all who are Escambia County residents know that County Commissioner for District 2, Mike Kohler, had the audacity to say that he wanted to rename 65th Avenue Charlie Kirk Memorial. Right? Now, we weren't going to let that slide. So yesterday we sent out an all call. And I spent my evening on the phone last night calling community members, pastors, everybody we could to show up tomorrow, this morning. And guess what? They walked that damn thing right on back. And so, so, I know, we don't keep our eye, but this is why it's important to attend county commissioner meetings, county commission meetings, the city council meeting, and certainly school board meetings when you have a chance. Now, I'm gonna get into what we all came to hear, right? I'm gonna game. It is now 5:40. We have a hard stop at 6:35. So I'm gonna give an opportunity for you guys to ask some questions. I'm going to ask our candidate to limit his responses so that we can get through as many questions as we can. But here, I would like to take the time to introduce Mr. David Jolly. David grew up in Florida, the son of a pastor. Today, he and his wife, Laura, are raising their young family in Pinellas County, where he served in Congress from 2014 to 2017. In Congress, David focused on helping veterans and seniors, supporting law enforcement, protecting the environment, and bringing resources back to Florida. David's work to clean up government corruption was featured on 60 Minutes. David became nationally known for his independent streak, leading the Tampa Bay Times to write, "It is refreshing to hear someone take on the system." One Washington Post columnist famously penned, "Jolly speaks the truth." And upon leaving Congress, another columnist wrote, "Farewell to the congressman willing to compromise." David has spent the last 8 years as a political analyst on MSNBC. His work has been featured in Time, USA Today, Roll Call, The Washington Post, The New York Times, CNN, NBC, and the Tampa Bay Times. David received a bachelor's degree from Emory University and a Juris Doctor cum laude from George Mason. It is my pleasure to introduce gubernatorial candidate for the state of Florida, Mr. David Jolly. Yeah, it is.
All right, hey everybody, how we doing? Good now. Good to say. Thank you for having me. I apologize for being a little late. We are going to have a hard stop, but I promise you I'm going to stick around. I'll be the last one to leave. If there's questions, we'll spend some time together because that's how we're going to win this race, is getting to know each other. I want to start off, for saying thank you, but to say thank you to your chair for his remarkable leadership, folks. You really do. You mentioned my bio. My father is a minister, so I'm going to do something ministers sometimes do, something I learned from my dad. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say, and then I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to tell you what I said. So I'm going to do three things tonight. I'm going to introduce myself to you. I'm going to introduce you to the values that I hope to bring to this campaign, and that I think are values we have as a state that we need to get back to. And then the third thing is I'm going to leave you with a very important message, and I'm going to spoil the plot here. We can win this race next November. I'm going to tell you why. But let's start how I said. I'm going to introduce you to myself. I am a candidate for governor. I'm running for governor because we have an affordability crisis in the state of Florida that has been created by the policies out of Tallahassee, and I think we need change. A little bit about myself. As Derek mentioned, my wife and I live in Pinellas County, down in the Clearwater, St. Pete area, a little town called Bel Air Bluffs. I was born in Dunedin. I had the opportunity to live for about 10 or 12 years in Miami. I then lived in Pasco County. Now, this was before the information age. Pasco was kind of off the edge of the earth. And then I had the opportunity to live here in Pensacola for about 5 years. Got my real estate license here. I worked at Olive Baptist Church in the gymnasium, opening it at 5 a.m. for the Silver Sneakers. And I would stand on the basketball court and take shots for about 3 straight hours. I got really good at a half-court shot. But I have not exercised since then in the last 25 years. My father was actually the head of the Pensacola Bay Baptist Association, a group of the local Baptist churches here. My mom served in ministry with them, but she volunteered in a lot of our libraries in the genealogy staff. We were in Milton today, where she left a strong legacy at the Milton Library, the San Rosa Library, and their genealogy department. So for me, coming back to Pensacola is just a wonderful time. My mom will still tell you this was the best chapter of their life. So I love being here in Pensacola. My wife and I have 2 young children, 6 and 4. You don't have to jump on Wikipedia. I'm 52. They're 6 and 4, and every day's a Monday in our house. I will also share with you, as part of my introduction, I'm a person of deep Christian faith. I want to be very specific about this. I share that as my introduction, not to evangelize, and to also tell you that I recognize that my faith stops at the steps of the State House. That's the way the Constitution is designed, and that's the Constitution I intend to protect. My origin story and my orientation today, and my introduction would be incomplete if I didn't share that. But this is a lived experience for my wife and I. I am 5th generation Floridian. That doesn't make me any better or worse than somebody who moved here yesterday. But I'm running for governor at a time when my wife and I are wondering if this is the state in which we want to raise our children.
Yeah.
That's a real life experience. There's some cognitive dissonance there. But we're running because I know that Florida is ready for change. Florida is ready for change. And part of winning an election, the overwhelming part of it, is not the candidate. It's not the candidate. We're going to talk about that tonight in several different ways. This isn't about David Jolly next November winning the governorship. This is about Florida's voters saying for the first time in 30 years, we want to change in leadership. Jolly just happens to be the candidate, but the movement is among the voters. It's why we saw Escambia County go blue. It's why in congressional special elections, we saw 15 to 16 point swing. It's why in state legislative races in Orlando, we saw a swing of almost 20 points. Voters are screaming for change because we're in the midst of an affordability crisis that our incumbent politicians are not listening to. Access to housing, the cost of utilities, the cost of car insurance, everything's going up. And frankly, we have policies in Tallahassee contributing to it. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. But I always start with defining my candidacy in this campaign and what I think this coalition's about. I start by talking about 3 fundamental values, not policies, values. Because as a new Democrat, you know what I get to be excited about? We get to accept math. And science and data and public health and vaccines and all these other things. let's try to do the math for a moment. There are not enough Democratic voters in the state of Florida to elect a Democratic governor by ourselves. There are not. We don't get to wish that away. Please, if we try to wish that away, we're going to lose. Now, the answer to building a coalition with a Democratic candidate, though, is not to change our values. It's to amplify our values where we have failed to do that in the past. That's why 14 months out, we were in Milton today, talking about our values. That's why in Collier County, on the steps of the courthouse, someone raised their hand and said, thanks for remembering that a Democratic vote in Naples counts the same as a Democratic vote in Broward. The way we build a coalition around Democratic values, but we amplify them to independents and our Republican friends, is we define this race by three fundamental values. First, the economy should work for everyone. Everyone. That's our first value. The economy should work for everyone. That means it should work for the successful and wealthy. We don't need to condemn success. We should celebrate those who have found their success. But we need an economy that is lifting up everybody from every walk of life, for the person who has lost their job, for the low wage earner, for the family trying to afford healthcare and education, for the line worker, for the first responder, for the teacher who is underpaid. The economy in Florida should work for everybody, and it's not. We have longtime homeowners who can't stay in their homes, first-time homebuyers who can't afford to buy a home, renters who can't afford to stay there. We have families in this community who are chasing rent and moving school districts in a matter of weeks, and their kids are missing school because they don't have the stability of health. We have an affordability crisis. We have an economy that is not working for everybody. Our first value is the economy should work for everybody. The second value is the government actually has a role in our lives.
Yes.
It does. The government has a responsibility to provide services where they are needed for our seniors, for our veterans, for our storm victims, for families in need of excellence in public education, for families in need of safe communities. The government actually has a responsibility to provide services in our life. It should be lean and efficient. It shouldn't be bigger than it needs to be. But we don't need to attack and destroy government, because government is something we created, we paid for, and we deserve the services of it. That's the second value. The first is the economy should work for everyone. Second, the government has a role in our lives. And the third is very simple and basic. We should be a state, and I know we are a Democratic Party, where everyone is welcomed and empowered regardless of the color of your skin, where you were born, who you love, or who you worship. That's the value. And I would suggest to you that if we amplify those values that are at the core of who we are as Democrats in a governor's race, where we're talking about the affordability crisis, investing in education, returning to a state where everyone is welcome, where your kids and grandkids might actually decide to stay when they get out of school. If we're talking about those values, we can build a coalition with our independent friends and our Republican friends, and we can create enough votes to win the governorship next November. I know we can do that. So what does that look like in policy? And I want to allow as much time for Q&A here. I'm just going to hit a couple things on the affordability crisis. The homeowners insurance market in the state of Florida has collapsed and it's not coming back. That's the truth. Our current policy is to put Band-Aids on a failing homeowners insurance system. And it's not coming back. We need a state catastrophic fund to remove hurricane coverage from the private market and fully cover it through a sovereign wealth fund in the state of Florida. It will cut your homeowner insurance by 60 or 70%. And every insurance writer in the world will come back, because now they're back to covering the traditional perils of a tree falling on your roof or of a mic breaking. I wish that was not the only solution, but it is. Where private markets have failed and created an affordability crisis for homeowners and Utah home buyers, the government has the responsibility to step in. We need generational property tax in the state of Florida for first-time home buyers. We know what we got in the 2000s when we had a similar crisis in insurance and taxes. People couldn't stay in their homes, so we came up with Save Our Homes and portability. It was the right decision. We should keep it. We have the inverted problem now, though. First-time home buyers, if you buy a home from a 20-year homeowner, your second-year tax bill jumps by 300 or 400%. And your homeowner's insurance is unaffordable, and now you're paying more in taxes and your insurance than you are on your mortgage and your home. We have a crisis that needs addressing. We should have first-time home buyer relief in the state of Florida. A 3, 4, 5-year step up in taxable basis, or maybe $150,000 homestead exemption for a first-time home buyer. something that allows people to enter the home buying market they are unable to today. Those can all pass through to renters as well. That relief could be available to landlords, and the rent community could experience the same relief. Frankly, on car insurance, we could move the natural disaster perils into the CAT fund, providing immediate relief. On utilities, how about a state that recognizes climate science once and for all? It's a good thing to recognize climate science because we can prepare for it and invest in the future of Florida, which means more clean and renewable energies that get us off the grid and get us out of the old energies, not only providing stewardship for the environment, but also driving down utility costs for ratepayers. That's a policy choice that our incumbents in Tallahassee have allowed their dirty marriage with special interest to further. Let's break up that marriage and bring in clean and renewable energies, protect the environment, recognize climate science, and reduce the cost of utilities for Floridians. We can do that. We can actually invest in many communities across the state of Florida in more public transportation and multimodal transportation. Get people off the highways, get them to work more quickly, reduce their consumption of fuel, but also stop tolling them $10 just for the privilege of going to work. There is a lot that can be done that's not, where we can hit the affordability crisis and make sure the economy actually works for everyone. Look, the government needs to serve our people. I'm going to hit on two quick things on this. First is education, and second is public safety. It is a moral wrong that our teachers are paid last in the nation in the state of Florida.
Amen.
There is no justification for it. This is not a political conversation. This is just a right or wrong. It is wrong that in the third largest state in the economy our size, we pay our teachers 50th in the nation when you include benefits. We're asking them to do a job that was done by 3 different people 10 years ago that they're now having to do as a solo teacher. We need a 10-year renaissance in public education in the state of Florida. It's been under attack for 20 years. It's going to take us 10 years to get it back. We need to commit to a 30% pay raise for teachers. Now look, if a politician could change things on day one, the Ukraine war would be over. I'm not going to promise you we can do it on day one, but we can commit on day one. And we can say over the next 3 years, we're going to do a 10% raise each year, get teachers back in the top half nationally, respect our teachers. But we need an investment in the infrastructure of our public schools as well, and platforms for learning for the future. We will never have Florida's families choose a public education environment if the voucher schools have hardened glass, security officers, small classrooms, modern facilities, and our public schools have trailers with leaky window units and a sandlot under an oak tree as a playground. We should invest in our infrastructure. We should allow our public schools to outcompete our charter and our private schools. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but it transforms lives. It transforms lives when we do that. And still today, despite the attack on public education, I promise you this, and if we've got educators in this room, God bless you, you know what I'm about to say. Still today, the greatest access to excellence in education and the arts and the trades are in our public schools, not our voucher schools. I promise you that. We may be a cycle or two too early for this, but Florida's families are being underserved by the current rules around voucher and charter schools. Now, I'm not here to kill the voucher program. I'm not. I know that's been a priority of past. School choice is here to stay. A lot of public school principals and administrators will tell you school choice is here to stay. But we need to significantly reform our choice program because we don't have a school choice program. We've got a false choice in the state of Florida. Our vouchers and charter schools are funding environments, not education. What do I mean by that? If a first grade kid in a voucher school can't read, they get to kick them out. That's true. Under the law today, they get to kick them out. And that is a lived experience of families across the state of Florida. They don't have to provide an IEP. They don't have to provide extra counseling or extra tutoring. They get to say, sorry, we don't want you. If a disabled child tries to enroll in a school and the voucher school doesn't want to provide the additional resources and additional expense, they get to discriminate against that disabled child. That's wrong. If a child wants to pursue the trades or the arts or excellence in education, maybe they want trigonometry, they don't have to provide that. Now listen, we don't need to attack private schools who are education partners of Florida's families. But we should stand up for Florida's families and say if that school is accepting a voucher and public money, they should have to provide the same services and standards and requirements and testing and academics that our public schools do. Create a level playing field. And along the way, it's got means testing for our voucher system because 70% of recipients in the first year of universal vouchers were already in those schools. This is no longer about helping the family in need. In fact, it is not solving the help for the family in need because the voucher school is also allowed to raise tuition, take the voucher money, but still ask you for $5,000 or $10,000, meaning that the family that was trapped, to use the words under Jeb Bush, is still trapped under today's voucher program. We don't have to kill choice in Florida, but we need to improve the outcomes for Florida's families if we're going to have a choice program. Look, the second way a government needs to serve, I'm just going to touch on this briefly because Tallahassee wants us to think that all of the crime in the state of Florida is because we have immigrants. That is statistically wrong. There's a higher rate of violent crimes in native-born communities than immigrant communities by a rate of 3 to 1. There's a higher rate of property crimes by a rate of 2 to 1 in our native-born communities than in our immigrant communities. What breaks my heart is that in Tallahassee and Washington right now, they're not fighting crime, they're fighting communities. They're fighting our immigrant community that for the most part is simply contributing to our culture and to our economy every day. Now listen, that doesn't mean we walk away from being tough on crime. In fact, Democrats should be known for being tough on crime. We should be a state that's tough on crime. Yes, we understand the discriminatory impact of criminal justice, and we're going to fight for equity in our criminal justice system. Yes, we understand that sometimes investing in a youth, giving them opportunities as opposed to no opportunities at all might be the difference whether or not they enter a life of crime or not. Fighting crime is a bigger question than just arresting people. But I'll tell you this, we should be tough on crime when someone breaks the law in the state of Florida, and as Democrats, we should champion that and say, yes, we are. But what does that mean? That means if you were born here, if you immigrated here from Cuba or Venezuela or Michigan or Ohio, New York, or if you're a Tallahassee politician who steals $10 million from the Medicaid program, if you break the law in the state of Florida, we will hold you accountable. We can fight crime without fighting communities. The last thing I'll touch, and then we'll get to Q&A. What does it mean to be a state where everyone is welcome and lifted up and empowered? It means on day one of the new administration in Tallahassee, the culture wars are over. Oh, yeah. They're over. No more dividing people based on who you love or who you worship or the color of your skin. No more attacking people's franchise and their suffrage, their direct democracy, their ability to vote simply because we don't like the outcome in some communities. No more telling teachers what they're allowed to say in the classroom. And look, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to make this personal for me because I've shared my faith story. Look, I grew up a preacher's kid in the 70s, a Southern Baptist preacher's kid. You can imagine that environment, right? I mentioned we're still raising our kids in the Christian church. Now, God bless my father who has since passed for teaching me, even as a conservative Southern Baptist, that in all things we lead with love. We lead with love. And that God calls on us to minister to everybody, not to judge and not to condemn. That is the spirit with which we should practice our faith. And one of the things on this trail I've done is build an affinity with the atheists and the agnostics among us, who on many days are far more charitable than our faith communities. But look, I introduce you to that because picture my 6-year-old and 4-year-old daughter, however you, or 6-year-old daughter, 4-year-old son, however you wish in our Christian church environment. But I want to tell you this. I want my children to be introduced to the greatest diversity of culture and thought and academia and art as we can expose them to, because it makes them stronger, more capable, more empathetic people ready to lead the world. And it should not be a threat to the religious community. It empowers your faith and empowers your children, and it makes us stronger as a society. We need to fight for everyone in this state and return to a state where everyone is welcome and empowered. We can do that again simply by changing the leadership in the state of Florida. I will end with this. How do we win this race? We have a changed environment in the state of Florida because we have a crisis of affordability in the midst of national division. And that's not good news that we have national division. It's not good news that we have an affordability crisis. But we have an opportunity in this moment to offer a vision and a way out, and to offer a way out. My friends on the other side of the aisle are not ideologically capable of solving our affordability crisis. A state catastrophic fund to them is socialism. That's true. I just call it cheaper insurance. They don't believe in investing in public education. They've had 20 years to try and they've defunded it. Their answer is to more funding for voucher schools that are underperforming Florida's families. They're not going to solve that. And on culture wars, they have made clear their direction. It doesn't require coarse language to just know what we see before our eyes. They are chasing a narrative for this state and for this nation that long ago was put away, that is raising its ugly head again.
Not going back.
We're not going back. We're not going back. Our daughter said to me one night, look, she's the precocious one. She's going to be just fine in life. We're going to set up the guardrail, she'll ping pong off, and then boom, she's gone. Our 4-year-old son's never leaving the house. But I was reading to our daughter one night in bed, and she interrupted me, which she likes to do a lot. And she started crying, and she said, Dad, I don't want you to run for governor. And listen, that matters. I could have a 6-year-old talk me in or out of this race in a heartbeat. I promise you. But as your daughter, that's right. After the events of last week, where the nation is unsettled, where we are defined by our uncertainty, we don't have easy answers coming out of last week. We can return to the values that we talk about, condemning violence, condemning hate, creating a community in the public space where we all get to raise our voices and have debate, and we believe we can win out on our values. But the level of uncertainty, of fear in our nation is real and it's gripping us. My daughter said, I don't want you to run for governor. Now, what she meant in her 6-year-old mind was that she hates politics. Can you blame a 6-year-old who's consuming politics at whatever level a 6-year-old consumes right now? We're broken. We're broken. And I assured her the reason we were in this race is because if you have a chance to change the world, you take it. You take it. And what I will tell you why we are here, but why we're going to win this race in this moment, we are all called to do what's within reach. The level of national division, the turning point in our state, we each have to do what's within reach if we expect to actually have a different outcome. Look, for some, what's within reach is committing to register to vote. Life provides enough challenges, getting to work, taking care of your kids, you've lost your job, you're not sure how to vote. That's what's within reach for some. For others, as Derek said, it's making sure that your vote by mail has been reviewed. It's taking the time to do that. For others, it's joining a group like this and being a part of organizing, helping turn Escambia blue. For some, it's standing for election, either for city mayor or for governor or for county commission. Lumen's in the background. You got one of the best county commissioners you've ever known. In this moment, we all have to do what's within reach. And when we do that together, when we each do that together, we do what's within reach for us, we come through on that promise for my daughter and for your daughter and for your grandkids. That we're going to change the world. We're going to change the world because in Florida in 2026, we're going to elect a Democratic governor. That changes the direction of Florida, but that changes the direction of the nation, folks. If Florida's voters, I'm going to end with what I started with. If Florida's voters elect a Democratic governor next November, not if David Jolly wins. Please understand this, not if David Jolly wins. If Florida's voters elect a Democratic governor in the state of Florida in 2026, in the home of the president, in the home of a governor who has had his grip on the party and MAGA for the last 8 years, if Florida's voters say, no way, we're not going that direction anymore, we're changing, we have changed the world, and the White House runs through Florida in 2028. That's what join me in this race, do whatever is within reach tonight and through next November, and we're going to go win. Thank you all very much. Everybody,
We are going to take a few minutes, and I'm going to walk through this. Let me tell Mr. Bell, you have a couple things I want to point out. You have some folks on Zoom. Unfortunately, the lightning struck the library, so they don't have audience. So what I will tell the folks on Zoom is if you have a question, please type it in the chat, and we will recognize and answer and try to get your question answered. I also want to acknowledge this is not only going out to this room, but it's being televised thanks to our only black on television station. It's reaching all the way to Panama City. WBTV. Also want to recognize phenomenal, only elected Democratic County Commissioner in the room, Commissioner Ruben May. I'm going to take a few moments and ask a couple of questions. I'm going to call on you. Please keep your hands up. When I come to you, I'm going to ask you guys to project loudly so that everybody can hear you. And then we're going to allow Mr. Bell an opportunity to give a brief response to those questions. So I'm going to start right here.
My name is Karen Jerkowicz, and we don't live in Escambia County. We live in Santa Rosa County. But we wouldn't miss this tonight at all. And I will say a couple of things that if we can change the world one handshake at a time. And I think by doing this kind of thing, we are doing that. I'm also a realtor. And every day I have conversations with first-time home buyers and then some old folks like us who can't afford to buy or stay in their homes because of insurance. It's criminal. And I appreciate so much that that is something that you are really focusing on and the tax rates, all the things. When I'm calculating what a first-time home buyer is going to have to pay in property tax, you're like, my God, what? And then they can't go forward and they can't afford the rent either. So thank you for what you're doing. You are greatly appreciated.
We're going to keep the answers tight. I mentioned that Democrats, we accept math. We've got to fund the state cap fund. We don't get to wish that away either. But guess what? It starts by taxing the profits of insurance companies here at the state. We currently let them ship their profits out of state, keep their losses here. If we taxed insurance companies and corporations, we'd raise $3 billion a year in the state of Florida. I would also tell you, we have a ton of tourist development money coming into Florida, and it impacts communities like Pensacola in a real way. We don't need to attack the tourism economy. That keeps us going as a state. Tourism, agriculture, construction. But we currently use all of that tourist development tax money for more tourism. Well, we don't have a crisis of convention centers in the state of Florida. We have a crisis of insurance and education. There are a lot of ways to fund this. The last thing I'll say is you mentioned a handshake changes a lot. We're going to get outspent in this race 10 or 20 to 1. I promise you that. Republicans will not let us win this without a fight. Y'all remember Lawton Childs? Walk Lawton. The reason we were in Milton 14 months out, we're here tonight 14 months out. This is my second trip. We'll be here 10 times before November's over. It's because the old Baptist thing, each one reach one. We're going in red communities and blue communities and middle of the road communities, and we are reaching people talking about our values and why the opportunity in the governor's race is the ability for you know what's within reach for our friends who are registered independents and Republicans? I've been all three, so I'm going to share with you what we have in common. What's within reach for our independent and Republican friends is maybe, just maybe, consider voting for a Democrat in the governor's race. Because if next November they turn around and say, every time Jolly's opened his mouth for the past 18 months, and his campaign has sent me something, or somebody has knocked on my door, they're talking about my insurance rate, homeowners or home taxes, real estate taxes, schools, safe communities, reducing gun violence. Understand nothing I have said tonight has litigated anything about the President of the United States. That's not this race. We've got a U.S. Senate race. This is a governor's race coalition that gives permission to a lot of people to join. That's right, sure.
Sir, I'm a retired realtor, and when I moved here in '91 from Rhode Island, I used to say to anyone that I talked to, you can come here and both husband and wife can work at McDonald's and buy a new house. And sometimes you don't pay someone, but next to nothing, $40 a square foot. What we need to do, you guys need to do this with someone else. Sell small homes. I just looked at some tiny homes today. For God's sake, stop trying to build the stuff that's getting built. why? Because we're so, oh, gotta have that, gotta have that. No, it's time to change what we live. Look around what we built in the fifties here. Look what I lived in the fifties. I'm 79 years old. We lived in 700 square foot houses, not 2,900 square foot. Enough, enough. That's how we beat. Not it being of the Ford homes. Put these young people in something. Stop giving the damn renters or the landlords the kind of money that we give. Because what are they living in? 700 square foot apartments, right? Sell something different, guys.
Yeah, you know, there's an opportunity in Florida to expand on the affordable housing model, but we actually have a fairly successful affordable housing model throughout the state. It requires municipalities to have the resources to commit to it, but it requires developers to enter into a 40-year agreement to provide quality housing, but keep rents at a certain level. We can expand on that model in a lot of ways, right? Build smaller, more affordable homes, provide the developers a 40-year tax incentive to do it. The way we need to do it, though, is we need a state government that actually block grants, resources, and money to municipalities that are willing to engage in this. Because I still believe it used to be a Republican principle. Apparently, it's not anymore in Tallahassee. That government decisions closest to the people are best and most effective. Pensacola and Escambia County know best how to solve the housing needs and the affordability needs of Pensacola and Escambia County. The job of the state government is to make sure we're helping out with the resources to get the city and the county.
Make sure your questions are brief so we can get to as many people as we are. I see everybody's hands. I'm going to work my way across the room sporadically. So I'm going to speak loudly.
Sure. I'm Martha Miller, Escambia County resident. I was super fired up for the Harris Walls ticket, and I thought we were getting momentum and stuff like that. What do you think that the Democratic Party kind of did wrong, or where did we lose people?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. And I was an analyst for 8 years. I'm going to talk a little bit as an analyst. John Hoffman, for those of you who watch MSNBC, said, stop being an analyst, start being a candidate. I'm trying to unlearn that reflex. Here's what I've said on national TV repeatedly. I'm not sure, looking back, that Democrats could have won that race. That does not mean that we didn't work our tails off and everybody gave of their time and treasure. But if you look at a post-COVID world economy, incumbents in dozens of Western nations lost their races. The world was being disrupted in a post-COVID environment, an inflationary environment, and the Democrats have the challenge of the Biden to Harris transition. I'm not sure there's an environment where we could have won, but boy, was it close. It actually was close. Now, here's an important thing for winning Florida. We lost Florida by 14 and 15 points in our U.S. Senate race and our presidential race. Please don't buy the narrative that somehow that applies to 26. And I promise you this, do not buy the narrative that the 22 cycle applies to the 26 cycle. Every cycle is different politically. Part of why I'm in this race is because 2026 will be a radical change environment electorally. That's what we're seeing now. The latest poll in this race, okay, so last November, Democrats were down by 14 or 15. In March, Escambia goes blue. The Space Coast swings by 16 points. Orlando 2 weeks ago swings by 20. In this governor's race, we are beating Byron Donalds by a point right now. I was worried, Jimmy Carter, when he was polling at 4%, he said, are you telling me I'm peaking too early? We need this environment next summer, and if we have put in the work and the labor and built a strong enough coalition, the voter registration delta between the parties doesn't matter. Because no amount of money and no amount of voter registrations can stop a movement. We put in the work, we register people as Democrats, but if you're not willing to be a Democrat, we can still ask for your vote. And next November, we can still win this race. And this cycle is a different cycle. Reject the narratives of 22 and 24. Now, along the way, where there's some missteps and maybe how we handled issues, sure. The reason I talk about the 3 values is because I think we got to get back to the basics and not get trapped by Republicans who want to throw a trap in front of us. If we focus on the values of an economy that works, a government that serves, and a place where everyone's welcome, I get to sit in the faith community and have that conversation. I get to go to the gun owner community and have that conversation, to the ag community. And yes, as Democrats, I get to go in the Cuban American community and condemn socialism. But if we focus always on returning to our values, we also allow the very young, super progressive, unsettled voter who says, I don't know that I can trust the Democratic Party, we give them a reason to say, let's at least have these shared values and try to effectuate change. We get to go to the Blue Dog Democrat and say, let's have these shared values. I think we have to avoid getting tripped up by Republicans, falling into some of the traps that we don't need to litigate. Because I promise you, everywhere we go around the state, the first thing a voter says is Florida's too expensive and we have an affordability crisis. Republicans in Tallahassee have created that. They're not fixing it. And we can be the coalition that says we're offering to change.
Okay.
Hi, Marlena Sullivan, the chair. Look, I'm concerned about the health of our students and the families. And what is your view about the elimination of the shots and vaccination as a requirement for admission to the school system? And what did you do about it? But
Oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. On day one, we're going to fire the Surgeon General and say, is a powerful drug, and we should always try to defend freedom. We have exemptions based on religious exceptions or based on a child's compromised health. But the role of government is to provide for the safety of a community.
yeah.
We do it through our traffic laws, through our building codes, through our gun laws, and yes, we do it through our public health laws because we don't want to spread polio and mumps and measles to our children. There is nothing wrong with requiring certain vaccinations that have been proven to be effective, that change the health outcomes of an individual, but also of a community. To require that is okay. It is a proper role of government. So one of the things we do, as I mentioned, is on day one, we fire the Surgeon General of the state of Florida. I will admit that we're at I will admit that we're at this point in Florida history, but one of the things we also get to do on day one is go through all of Ron DeSantis' appointees and start to remove and replace and fire them. That starts with the state university system to try to take over the parts of our utilities. How about returning to our water boards people who actually understand the science of clean water and clean air? They're going to fight for that instead of fighting for development. I lament that we're at a point where we actually need to dismiss most of this governor's appointees. I wish we had more bipartisan approach to who we have serve our institutions, but it is out of control. And what we get to do as a new governor is go about replacing leadership across the state.
Dick.
I did very quickly, I worked with a number of people in this Escambia Democrat Party. I'm an ex-Republican, I'm an ex-Reagan Republican. I'm still a conservative, a moderate conservative, and I want to become a Democrat. So I'm an NPA at this point, willing to go and do the canvassing and everything that needs to be done. And I just want to appeal because we're in a situation, you mentioned values. Yes, values are different, but you know, other things ideologically, we just need to come together because as I see it, it's not just Florida, it is also, what's the current administration, an existential threat to our democracy. So we really need to coalesce and cuss and discuss and come to the middle ground.
Thank you. Thank you. Just in the way of personal introduction, the 6 years as an independent did unlock a lot of my approach to politics. That is maybe a little bit different. We mistakenly think that every independent's a moderate. That's not true. Many are, some are super progressive, some are super conservative. Most are distrustful of current politics and current incumbents. Most are dissatisfied that we haven't seen the results that we need. Many are angry about the direct attacks on personal democracy. But here's where it led me. I reject the left-right middle spectrum altogether. I think it confines us and restricts us and it quiets big ideas. We need bold solutions to big problems we have in the state of Florida. In some cases, when it comes to property insurance, that's pretty far out there for some Republicans. As I mentioned, they call it socialism. I call it cheaper insurance. I still think we're in a position where we need less taxes. We should always fight for less taxes, but we gotta make sure we have sufficient revenue to provide the services to communities that need it. Some of my socialist friends might say, oh, that's jolly, going back into that less tax environment. We gotta be careful. I don't care about the left-right spectrum, and we shouldn't either. Our values as Democrats are values that care for our communities and care for everybody. We preach love and not hate, and we actually want to change people's lives. Those are our values, and along the way, we're going to protect democracy and fight for people's personal voices to be lifted up. We're going to fight for an economy where everyone has an opportunity. Yes, those are democratic values, but those are values of an independent and a disaffected Republican as well. Here's what I would beg of you in this environment. As Democrats, we have to unify now. One of the ways we turn away the former Reagan Republican and independent, he's not a plant, I promise you, we haven't met before tonight. But you want to run off independence? A way to run off independence is for Democrats to have a circular firing squad for the next 12 months over a litmus test within our party. We have an opportunity to press our case against Republicans through next November. If we fight each other between now and next August, we're going to lose this race. We're going to lose this race. One of the lessons of 2018, maybe one of the lessons of 2 years ago, is we spent too much time fighting each other and not fighting for the future of the country.
Amen.
If we focus on fighting for the future of the state of Florida, we give permission for independents and Republicans to consider being a part of us, to consider registering as a Democrat, but even if not, at least pulling a lever for a Democrat for the first time that maybe they have done in decades. That's the opportunity we have.
So we have about 10 more minutes. We're going to take just a couple more questions. I have a couple questions from the chat. I want to acknowledge those on Zoom. So I'm going to ask, ma'am, you're in front, right here. Please keep your question brief. So.
Yes. What plans do you have in place to invest in the revenue system for people with disabilities? People with disabilities.
People with disabilities. I'm gonna keep this tight. We always go long because of the candidate, not because of the questions. I apologize. The IDD, the community of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities is one of the most overlooked communities in the state of Florida. It impacts families all around. And it particularly impacts parents who are aging out and may leave this earth before their child does, their adult child with disabilities, unable to care for themselves. So life plan around that is a moment that very few of us ever have to face. Under Jeb Bush, to his credit, Governor Bush fought to clear the wait list for services to our IDD community and families caring for family members. They had it down to 0 under Jeb Bush. The wait list is now over 10 years in the state of Florida. For many families, it's over 14, 20 years. The way we provide services is based on who presents a crisis, and we move them to the front of the line. This comes down to the responsible administration of government. It is an overlooked area where we need to spend more resources to clear that wait list. It also means we need to reject the movement towards managed care. Folks, I'm going to ask you to think of a situation, a 52-year-old with Downs who has developed Alzheimer's, has anxiety, has to get a cavity filled at the dentist. What do you think is required for that? Probably sedation, probably other procedures. But if we're shoving that into managed care and they don't have those services, the health outcomes of that individual are not going to be what they could be. And it's also a moral stain on us. I'm going to wrap up this question with this piece because politics gets really dirty. And my opponent's going to try to tag me with something, and I'm going to alert you to it now. Over 10 years ago, I worked for a man that, if proven true, turned out later to be a really bad guy. I was on the board of Stetson Law School and their board of elder affairs and the laws that affect the IDD community. And as an advisor there, I met someone that I worked for and ended up going to work for 2 years. Long after I was gone, we just learned last year, he was arrested for stealing money from families with special needs. He created a special needs trust for these families. And if proven true, he's due his day in court. He stole over $100 million. Wow. It is a historic case of fraud within our IDD community. I worked for that man. I didn't know anything about it. Obviously, at the time, I was not in a position of financial controls and visibility. I condemn what he did, and I am angry with him, just like the family should be. And if he's guilty, he deserves what the law delivers to him. But in the Bible I believe in, there's a passage that says, what they intended to use to harm me, I use for good.
Yes.
To my Republican friends who want to make this an issue, bring it on. Bring it on. Because unlike Rick Scott, when you got nothing to hide, I don't have to plead the fifth. I'll tell my story.
There you go.
The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, now we're going to have a conversation about investing in resources for the IPD community. Because under Republican control of the past 3 administrations, we now have a 14, 20-year waiting list for services, and we're going to fix that if I have an opportunity.
So, a couple questions from the chat. And the first one comes from Ms. Spade Merritt. She asked, you mentioned as a new Democrat, as a former Republican, what made you change your party affiliation?
Because I found a home. Because I found a home. Listen, when I was a Republican, I was never a good enough Republican for Republicans. I was a Bush 41 Republican. I served in Congress. I supported marriage equality, climate science, gun control, campaign finance reform. I was the only vote against the Planned Parenthood investigation. When they moved to cut $400 million from Planned Parenthood, I tried to move that money to community health centers to at least continue the provision of care in communities across the country. Republicans didn't want me, but Democrats didn't need me. And I was a testament that when you stand in the middle of the road in politics, you get run over. But I was fighting for those 3 values I talked about tonight when I was a Republican. When I was an independent, I was fighting for those values. It's a very reform-minded community. As an independent, I was still fighting for an economy that worked, for a government that served, for everyone being welcome. I was fighting for democracy reform. And when I look at today's Democratic Party, those are the values I see. And for me, I found a home. And that's the answer, and I'm excited about it.
The next question is also from the chat that comes from Linda Gully. She asks, homeowners have so many additional financial responsibilities added to their already high mortgages. That being said, what do you intend to do about the annual fees that are charged to homeowners by the HOA?
I think we saw some HOA reform in Tallahassee. I think when it comes to condo boards or HOAs, the problem is that homeowners have lost the ability to hold their HOA boards accountable. And when it comes to the assessments, significant assessments that are put on homeowners, they get locked into something that they never signed up for. I'm all for reforming, returning as much authority as we can through HOA and condo reform policies to homeowners. I also think in a post-Surfside environment, though, the state can do more for some of these condo buildings and other communities where the assessments have been $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. We need a zero-interest 10-year state-backed loan provided to HOAs, to condo boards, to homeowners that's transferable upon the sale, where the actual cost of those reforms can be amortized over 10 years, making the property more sellable should they wish to get out. There's a lot to do. I will also tell you this. Guess what? You're about to have a governor that admits he's not an expert in everything. Understand real leadership sometimes means leading shoulder to shoulder, not out front. And so my job as governor is to bring in the subject matter experts that know best how to resolve some of these challenges.
We have time for one more question, and we're going to make this very brief. I'm going to go to, yes.
Thank you. I was one of those teachers in Escambia County for 40 years, and I taught the blind and the visually impaired, and that's one of my students. I'm concerned about education, the Department of Education at Washington, D.C., and especially for the people with handicaps. Is there anything you can do as a governor to reassure me and help me know that my kiddos that I've had and are still in school are going to be okay?
Yeah, first let me tell you what I'm going to do as a candidate. I try to do every day. You make me smarter on these issues. You make me smarter on solutions. You help me refine who I am as a candidate and who I can be as governor so that I can be the most responsive to the community of these. You're going to help me with that. Now, here's what I will tell you, having just been through a school, it's been through a classroom where 4 or 5 children were just required in 3rd grade to pass and fail their assessment tests 3 times before they actually could be moved to certain services. Those failure points for that test are now a black mark on the school and the principal because our Department of Education thinks that we need to force students through testing when they're incapable of taking the test themselves. The answer for a governor and for a government is to provide resources to people like yourself who understand how to deliver for the needs, how to educate children and educate adults and create more capable people willing to have a life or capable of having a life of independence, or if they require assistance, to make sure that assistance is provided. You can help me do that. A lot of these issues are not right versus left, they're right versus wrong. We have abandoned too many priorities in the state of Florida and we've gotten it wrong. This goes back to empowering people who know how to do their craft and their vocation, who lead with their heart, lead with love every day, but lead with a qualification and ability and experience that I don't have. The job of the government is to get your back to change lives in your classroom and to make sure that people are able to have an adulthood that provides for the opportunity they're capable of. We're going to do that together.
And I can say, we live in Bell Meadow Boulevard.
Oh!
It's where your mom and dad live. So we can say your parents are awesome.
Last question, and that is for everybody here. For those who would like to support you, would like to get more information, how can they go about doing so?
DavidJolly.com. Sign up to volunteer. Of course, we need resources, but more importantly, we need your commitment to do what's within reach. For some, that is giving. But we need to organize now. You're going to see in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to try to start to form county committees or regional committees so that each one can start to reach one. This is going to be very much a Lost Child's campaign, a Bob Graham type campaign. We are going to out-organize and outwork our opponents, and it doesn't matter how much money they have, because they're not going to be able to stop us. I promise you that. Go to davidjolly.com, sign up, let us know you're interested, and please, 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 the point I made, if I'm a candidate or not, I'm telling you this, the way we win next November as Democrats is to unify now. Please do your part to not let this party get torn apart by fighting each other for the next year. We will lose the greatest opportunity we've had in 30 years. Thank you
Now, I'm going to we've got a couple changes left. So before everybody goes, I want to make sure that everybody, before I say this, number one, we're in the library. So we're going to have to return the chairs in the order that we got them, which are going to be on the rack. But before we do so, I want to make sure that I give a couple of last minutes to Lil, who's going to tell us about a volunteer event that we have coming up and how we could use your help.
Okay, I'm gonna be quick. It's become a tradition with the Escambia Democratic Party to help some of our neighbors, during the Thanksgiving period of time. Reverend Tinsdale at the Epps Center, does a Thanksgiving dinner, for people in the community and, who have needs. Also, she sent out the Meals on Wheels to people, and what we have done in the last few years is provide toiletries. So next month at our meeting, please bring any kind of shampoos, conditioners, soap, all that kind of stuff. The sizes of, travel size usually is better. We take socks, we take tissues, we take anything that you think someone who is living on their own would have a need for. We usually stuff in some toilet paper in each bag, and we'll have more information about stuffing times after that. But next month, please bring us some toiletries that we can share with them. And we always put a card in that says Happy Thanksgiving from the Escambia Democratic Party. So please join us and help us with that.
I want to say thank you to each one of you for coming out. This was a very packed room tonight, and I absolutely love it. For you guys who are visitors, don't make this the last time that you're here, because in order to keep the momentum going that we have in Escambia County, we need each of you. We need each of you here to work with us, whether it's knocking on doors, whether it's writing postcards, whether it's making phone calls. We have stuff that is something that everybody can do, no matter your physical element, your age, Whatever your time constraint is, we can find something for you. But it's going to take each one of us to continue this momentum so that we can see a Democratic governor in 2026. So at this time, I want to say thank you for attending. We are going to adjourn our meeting at 6:37. Please staff up the chairs so that we can put the library back. And if you have questions for Mr. Valley, you can stick around as long as you can. Thank you.
Was I standing in front of you?
Got it. Thank you.